47 confirmed, he said, actual numbers higher. Some operations don't exist on paper. Teach me. Not a request, a demand. Teach me everything. Teach me how to hunt at night. Teach me how to kill snipers who think darkness protects them. Teach me so no one else's brother dies, thinking the enemy owns the night. Sergeant Rodriguez was 58 years old, dying, tired, ready to fade away. But this girl, this fierce, angry, determined girl, reminded him of someone. Reminded him of himself at 25. I'll train you, he said. 6 months, every night. I'll teach you everything I learned hunting the best night operatives the Soviets ever produced. But you need to understand something first. Sophia met his eyes. This isn't about revenge. Sergeant Rodriguez said, revenge makes you sloppy, makes you emotional, gets you killed. You want to honor your brother. Don't hunt for revenge. Hunt to protect. Become the predator they fear. Make the night belong to the people trying to do good in this world instead of the people trying to do harm. Can you do that? Sophia's jaw tightened. Yes, sir. Then tomorrow night we start. Bring a notebook. You're going to need it. For the next 6 months, Sergeant Rodriguez poured everything he knew into Sophia Chun. Every night they train. Started with the basics. How to move in darkness. How to read wind at night when you can't see the flags. How to calculate for temperature drop. How to account for altitude and humidity in barometric pressure. Then the advanced skills. How to spot thermal signatures. How to mask your own heat signature. How to detect electromagnetic emissions from enemy night vision. How to use geometry and patience to thread bullets through impossible angles. Sergeant Rodriguez taught her about weapons. The SR-25 rifle. 62 by 51 mm NATO rounds. Effective range 800 meters in daylight, 600 at night. With subsonic ammunition, 175 grain, Sierra Match King bullets at 150 feet per second. You could stretch that to 700 if you understood ballistics like a mathematician and read wind like a prophet. He taught her about optics, the ANPVS-31 binocular night vision goggles, Generation 3 plus white phosphor tubes, 40-degree field of view, and the cutting-edge technology Sophia had requisitioned through channels. Sergeant Rodriguez taught her how to access experimental DARPA fusion optics that combine thermal imaging with image enhancement. See what the enemy sees. See more than the enemy sees. Most importantly, Sergeant Rodriguez taught her patience. The enemy thinks technology makes them superior. He said one night watching Sophia calculate a 600-meter shot in pitch darkness. Thermal scopes, night vision, encrypted communications. They think those tools make them invincible. They're wrong. Tools are just tools. It's the person using them that matters. And every tool has a weakness. Every advantage creates a vulnerability. Your job is to find those vulnerabilities and exploit them. These snipers own the night. 10 minutes, maybe less. Carter was already dead. 3 more wounded. The enemy was methodical, professional, taking their time, picking them apart one shot at a time. Cross had fought in Desert Storm when he was 20 years old. Had been in Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down, Afghanistan, Iraq. For decades of combat experience. And he'd never felt this helpless. You couldn't fight what you couldn't see. Couldn't locate enemies who could watch you die in perfect thermal clarity while you fumbled blind in the darkness. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, just 7 men dying slowly in a valley nobody back home could pronounce. Killed by an enemy they never saw coming. That's when the voice cut through the radio. Calm, steady, like someone ordering coffee. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch. I can hunt them. Cross Kia's radio with shaking hands. Who the hell is this? We need actual support, not chief. The voice was female, young, and carried an absolute certainty that made Cross pause. I'm 300 meters northwest of your position. I've been tracking enemy movement for the past hour. I count 10 snipers in a coordinated kill zone. They're using A and past 13 thermal weapon sites. I can eliminate them, but I need you to trust me and stay down. You're one person. Cross heard another SEAL scream as a round found flesh. We need a platoon air support. Something that can chief. You're out of time. The voice didn't rise. Didn't waver. I'm moving now. Keep your IR strobes off and don't shoot at muzzle flashes. You'll give away your positions. I've got this. Cross looked at his team. For casualties in less than 3 minutes. The math was simple and brutal. At this rate, they'd all be dead in 10 minutes. He had no choice. Copy Overwatch. He took a breath. The night is yours. What Chief Daniel Cross didn't know, what nobody in that valley knew except the woman moving through the darkness. 300 meters northwest was that Staff Sergeant Sophia Chun had been preparing for this moment for 7 years. Every shot she would take tonight, every elimination, every tactic, all of it traced back to a single phone call on a September morning in 2016 when she'd learned her brother was dead. 41 years ago, in the winter of 1983, a young Marine corporal named William Rodriguez crouched in the frozen darkness along the West German border and learned that death had a thermal signature. The Cold War was at its peak. Reagan in the White House, Soviet tanks lined up across the Fula Gap. The entire world balanced on a nuclear knife's edge, and young men like Rodriguez stood on the front lines of that invisible war. He was 25 years old, fresh-faced despite 3 years in force reconnaissance. Still believed in right and wrong, good guys and bad guys, the clarity of purpose that made you join the Marines in the first place. The Soviet Spetsnaz operative he was hunting had no such illusions. They fired simultaneously. Both missed. Was the only miss in either man's entire career. The only time Ghost Rodriguez failed to kill his target. The only time Victor Constantine's bullet went wide. They stared at each other across 30 m of darkness. Then Constantine smiled, gave a small salute, disappeared into the night. Rodriguez never saw him again. Not in Berlin when the wall came down. Not when the Soviet Union collapsed. Constantine vanished like he'd never existed. And Rodriguez spent the next 20 years wondering if he'd imagined the whole thing. He retired in 2010, 52 years old, 30 years of service, a chest full of medals nobody could ask him about, and a head full of memories he couldn't talk about even if they did. Then came the diagnosis: lung cancer, terminal, chemical exposure from operations that officially never happened in countries the Marines officially never visited. 6 months, maybe a year. That's what the doctor said. Rodriguez bought a small house near Fort Bragg and waited to die. That was the plan anyway until a young Army private showed up on his doorstep in September 2016 with rage in her eyes and a photograph in her hands. Her name was Sophia Chun, 25 years old, skinny, determined, eyes that wouldn't look away. The photograph showed a man in Army dress uniform, older than Sophia by a few years. Same cheekbones, same stubborn jaw. His name was David, she said. Captain David Chun, my brother. He died 3 weeks ago in Afghanistan. Sniper attack. 10 Taliban with thermal scopes in the mountains. Killed him and 4 Rangers in the middle of the night. Her voice didn't shake, didn't break, just stated facts like she was filing a report. They said there was nothing he could do. Said you can't fight snipers at night when they have thermal optics and you don't. Said it was just bad luck. Rodriguez stood in his doorway and said nothing. I found your name in classified reports. Sophia continued. Spent 2 months digging through everything I could access. Everything I couldn't access, I accessed anyway. Court-martial me later. Right now I need to know if it's true. Did you really kill 47 Soviet Spetsnaz operatives at night when they had thermoscopes and you didn't? The angle was extreme. The target was minimal. The shot was nearly impossible. She took it anyway. This one's for you, David, she whispered. The subsonic round flew through mountain air for 1.88 seconds. A tiny piece of lead threading through darkness, finding its target through mathematics and skill. And 7 years of grief transformed into purpose. The thermal bloom suddenly tilted, fell sideways. The enemy sniper collapsed inside his cave, never knowing what killed him. 5 down. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the phone. Pride thick in his words despite the cancer eating his lungs. That's my girl. David would be proud. Sophia was already moving to her next position. No time for grief. No time for relief. 5 more targets. 5 more threats to eliminate. Target 6 made a fatal mistake. He used his radio. The electromagnetic signature lit up on Sophia's detection equipment like a flare. 295 m north, concealed in thick brush where his thermal signature blended with ambient heat. Invisible to most sensors, but the EM spike from his radio transmission gave him away. Triangulated his exact position. Sophia fired into the vegetation, aimed at the center of that electromagnetic pulse. The brush rustled, shifted. A body fell. An SVD rifle clattered against rocks. 6 down. Targets 7 and 8 panicked. Both broke position simultaneously. Started running, trying to relocate to better cover. Fatal mistake. Movement created clear thermal signatures against the cool rocks. Heat blooms moving across cooler backgrounds. Might as well have been carrying spotlights. Target 7 was running north-northeast. 380 m and opening. Sophia led him by 2. Accounted for his speed and the bullet's flight time. The running figure collapsed mid-stride. Tumbled down the slope. Target 8 had reached new cover. A boulder at 410 meters. Thought he was safe, but his thermal signature was partially visible around the edge of the rock. 8 inches of exposure, just enough. Sophia threaded the needle. The round passed through the gap between rocks. Found flesh. The thermal signature disappeared. 8 down, 2 remaining. The last 2 enemy snipers had gone completely dark. Thermal scopes off. No movement, no emissions. Making themselves as small and cold as possible. They knew they were being hunted by someone with superior capabilities. Their only hope was to hide. Wait, hope she couldn't find them. But Sophia had been tracking these snipers for 3 days. Knew their positions, knew their patterns, knew where they'd retreat when they went to ground. Target 9 was 580 m southeast in a narrow crevice in the rocks that provided perfect thermal protection. The rocks masked his heat signature completely. He was invisible to thermal imaging, invisible to most detection methods. But Sophia had watched him prepare this exact position 48 hours ago. Knew precisely where a prone sniper would lie for bombing for optimal firing angle. Knew the geometry of that crevice like she'd carved it herself. 3 more down in the first volley. Sophia used the chaos to close distance. Moved to within 300 m of the nearest enemy cell, a 3-man team that had taken cover behind a large boulder formation. They thought they were safe. Thought the boulder protected them from the American teams on the ridges. They weren't thinking about the threat from below. Sophia's shots came from an angle they'd never considered, threading between rocks, finding flesh. 3 more down in rapid succession. 11 enemies had become 5 in less than 3 minutes. And those 5 were starting to break, starting to run. Movement created thermal signatures. Heat blooms against cool rocks. Targets for Sophia's rifle and the American teams coordinating fire from the ridges. 2 more fell trying to relocate to better positions, 3 remaining, and all of them professionals. And all of them realizing they'd been outmaneuvered by someone better. All of them making the calculation that survival meant extraction. They broke contact, tried to disengage, tried to escape into the mountains, but Sophia was already moving to cut off their retreat routes, and Rodriguez was directing the American teams to block every exit vector. The first enemy operative ran directly into Team 4's position. The Marines took him down before he could return fire. The second tried to hide, went to ground in a position that provided good cover, but no escape routes. Waited for Sophia to pass by so he could take her from behind. But Sophia had been trained by a man who knew every Spetsnaz tactic, every Soviet doctrine, every trick that Russian special forces had developed over 40 years of Cold War operations. She didn't pass by his position. She came at it from the one angle he couldn't defend. Fired through a narrow gap he didn't know existed. 15 down, 1 remaining. Sophia tracked him through thermal imaging. Watched him move. He was good. Used terrain expertly. Masked his thermal signature. Made himself hard to follow. But he made one mistake. He moved toward the primary exfiltration point, the location where Konstantin would have planned an escape helicopter. And Sophia had studied the terrain, knew exactly where that location had to be. She beat him there by 4 minutes, positioned herself in shadows, waited with the patience Rodriguez had drilled into her over 6 months of training. When the last enemy operative arrived, breathing hard, thinking he'd made it to safety, Sophia's voice cut through the darkness. "Drop your weapon." He spun, tried to bring his rifle up. Fast, professional. Not fast enough. Sophia's shot took him in the shoulder. Non-lethal, deliberate. She needed him alive. He went down, weapon clattering away across rocks. Sophia moved in quickly, kicked the rifle out of reach, covered him with her SR-25. "Phase 2, she said quietly. "Tell me where Konstantin is hitting my students." "Fort Bragg, Quantico, Syria." "All 3. The operative said nothing, just stared at her with hatred and pain. "You know what happens next. Medical teams will keep you alive. Intelligence officers will ask questions. Eventually, you'll talk. Everyone talks. I'm just giving you the chance to talk now before your teammates all died for nothing. Still nothing. Then Rodriguez's voice in her earpiece. Sophia, we've got satellite imagery coming through. You need to see this. She kept her rifle trained on the wounded operative while checking her tactical display. Rodriguez sent through images captured from surveillance satellites in real time. Fort Bragg training facility. Fire trucks and medical responders. Bodies being carried out on stretchers. Quantico rifle range. Same scene. Fire casualties. Case Syria. Fort operating base. Medics working on wounded soldiers in triage. All 3 locations. All 3 had been hit simultaneously while Sophia's teams were engaged with the 16 operatives in Afghanistan. Oh God. Sophia's voice went hollow. It was all a distraction. The 16 operatives, the ambush. Phase 2 wasn't about killing us. It was about keeping us busy while the real attack happened. The wounded operative smiled through his pain. You're good. Better than Constantine expected. But he's better. He always wins. Always. How many of her students were dead? How many had she failed? Guardian teams, she transmitted. Secure the perimeter. We have 1 prisoner for interrogation. I need immediate satellite communications with Fort Bragg, Quantico, and Syria Task Force. The next 30 minutes were a nightmare. Status reports coming in from all 3 locations. Fort Bragg 4 dead, 2 missing. All of Sophia's trainees attacked during night training exercise by infiltrators using thermal optics and subsonic weapons. Professional head in and out before base security could respond. Quantico 2 instructors dead. Both had been teaching Sophia's tactics to reconnaissance students. Shot from long range during an early morning jog. Snipers never located. Syria 3 wounded, 1 dead. Attacked during patrol by enemy, using night vision and coordinated tactics. The dead soldier was Sophia's best student. A young ranger she'd personally mentored for 6 months. 7 of her 12 students dead. 2 missing presumed dead. 3 wounded. Sophia sat in the darkness of the Afghan mountains surrounded by the bodies of 15 enemy operatives she'd helped eliminate. A tactical victory. Perfect execution. Not a single American casualty during their operation. But while they'd been fighting here, Constantine had been killing there, destroying her legacy. Proving that no matter how good she was, he was better, smarter, more experienced, more willing to sacrifice his own people as pawns in a larger game. Chief Cross approached. His ribs were taped, moving hurt, but he was walking. Sergeant, we need to get you back to base. Prisoner transport is inbound. 15 enemy Kia confirmed. Your tactics saved this operation. My tactics got 7 of my students killed, Sophia said quietly. Your tactics weren't the problem. Constantine outmaneuvered everyone. Command intelligence. All of us. Cross sat down next to her with a grunt of pain. I've been fighting since Desert Storm. 34 years. I've seen good plans fail because the enemy was better. This is one of those times. Sophia looked at the tactical display, still showing footage from Fort Bragg. Young soldiers being carried out in body bags. Operators she trained. People who trusted her to prepare them for night warfare. People who died while she was too far away to help. Private channel Sophia, I'm looking at the same footage you are. I know what you're thinking. This isn't your fault. 7 dead ghost. Brave operators who died in combat. Not because you failed them. Because Constantine is willing to sacrifice anything to win. That's not strength. That's desperation. Rodriguez's voice was weak. The cancer and stress taking their toll. He sacrificed 16 of his own people tonight just to distract you. That's not the move of someone who's winning. That's the move of someone who knows he's running out of time. What do I do? Sophia asked. Not as a soldier, as a student asking her teacher. You finished this not for revenge, not to prove you're better, but because 5 of your students are still alive, because Constantine made this personal, and because sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to bloom what he fears most. What's that? Something he can't predict, can't outmaneuver, can't beat through experience or tactics. Rodriguez paused, his breathing rattled. He spent 40 years being the hunter. Time to show him what it's like to be prey. Sophia stood, checked her rifle, her ammunition, her equipment, everything she'd used to kill 15 enemy operatives tonight, while Constantine killed 7 of her students somewhere else. The math was brutal. The reality was clear. Constantine was better at this game than she was, more experienced, more willing to sacrifice, more cunning. But he'd made one mistake. He'd made it personal. And personal meant Sophia wouldn't stop, wouldn't quit, wouldn't rest until this was finished. "Chief," she said to Cross, "I need transport back to base, and I need every piece of intelligence we have on Constantine's location." "What are you planning, Sergeant?" Sophia looked at the mountains, at the darkness that had been her domain for 7 years, at the night that Rodriguez had taught her to own. "Phase 3, she said. "Constantine invited me to finish this face to face. Hunter versus Hunter." She chambered around. Time to accept his invitation. As the video ended, Rodriguez's voice came through Sophia's earpiece. Weak, labored, but with an edge she'd never heard before. "Sophia, that listening post, the coordinates Constantine sent. What about a ghost?" A long pause, machines beeping in the background. "That's where Constantine and I met. Where we both missed. Where we talked for 1 hour as friends before the war separated us again." Rodriguez's breathing rattled. "He's not just inviting you to a fight. He's inviting you to where it all began. Where he and I became equals. Where our rivalry was born." Another pause. "Sophia, he's dying too. The intelligence file I just received. Constantine has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months prognosis. Same timeline as me." Sophia's blood ran cold. "He's dying. This isn't about winning anymore. It's about going out on his terms. Taking my legacy with him before cancer takes him. It's a suicide mission, Sophia, for both of you." She looked at the frozen frame of Constantine on screen, his gaunt face, the way he stood. Now that Rodriguez mentioned it, she could see it. The same hollowed cheeks, the same weight loss, the same terminal look. "Then we're both racing death," Sophia said quietly. "The question is who reaches the finish line first. The question," Rodriguez corrected, "is whether either of you survives to cross it." The coordinates came through encrypted channels 48 hours after Constantine killed 7 of Sophia's students. A simple message. No threats, no demands, just numbers and a time. Grid reference 472, 72 hours. "Come alone." Attached to the message was video footage. 3 of Sophia's trainees, the ones missing from Fort Bragg, bound and kneeling in darkness. All 3 alive but beaten. Behind them stood a figure Sophia had only seen in Cold War photographs. Victor Constantine, 68 years old, gray hair, weathered face, eyes like winter ice. "Sophia Chun," he said in accented English. "Rodriguez's masterwork. For 38 years, your teacher and I hunted each other. Neither of us ever landed the killing shot. We were equals. Perfect balance." He placed a hand on one hostage's shoulder, but he got cancer, retired, never faced me again. So now I face his legacy instead. You have 72 hours. Come alone to these coordinates. Prove you're worthy of the ghost's name, or I kill these 3 slowly and upload the videos for Rodriguez to watch as he dies. The video ended. Sophia sat in the operation center at Bram and felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, not rage, just absolute clarity. This ended in 72 hours one way or another. Colonel Mitchell stood across the briefing table. "Sergeant Chun, I cannot authorize a solo operation against a fortified position. It's suicide." "Then don't authorize it, ma'am. Court-martial me after I bring my people home." Chief Cross stepped forward. His ribs were still taped from the ambush 3 days ago. "Constantine has had months to prepare that location. He knows you're coming. He'll have every advantage. High ground, prepared positions, overlapping fields of fire. You walk in there alone and you die." Sophia pulled up satellite imagery of the coordinates. An abandoned Soviet listening post from the Cold War. Mountain stronghold. Single approach. Perfect defensive position. But he said, "Come alone." I don't. He kills my people and disappears. Continues hunting the 5 students I have left across the globe. This is the only chance to end it. The young SEAL had barely left Sophia's side since the ambush. "Ma'am, with respect," he said, "come alone." Didn't say anything about accidentally running into a lost SEAL patrol in the same area. Sophia allowed herself a small smile. "Maintain perimeter at 2 kilometers haze. When the shooting starts, secure the exits." But inside that stronghold, she met his eyes. "That's between me and Constantine. Has been since he killed my students. Since he challenged Rodriguez's legacy. Some fights you take alone. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the satellite phone. He was back at Fort Bragg now, too weak to travel again, dying in a hospital bed while his student prepared to face his greatest enemy. Sophia, you need to understand something about Constantine. He's not just trying to kill you. That's suicide. You'd be walking into a trap. I'd be setting a trap. Sophia corrected. Constantine thinks he understands how I operate. He spent 6 months studying me. 10 of his people died gathering that intelligence. He's confident now. Thinks he knows my patterns. She turned to face the room. So, we break those patterns. Give him something he doesn't expect. And when he commits his forces, we eliminate them. And if it doesn't work, Mitchell asked. Then 12 of my students die, and Constantine moves on to phase 3, which I'm guessing means coming after me directly. Sophia's voice didn't waver. Either way, this ends now on our terms, not his. Mitchell studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll authorize a tactical operation. You'll have full support, but Sergeant Shun, this goes wrong. It's on both of us. Understood, ma'am. As the briefing broke up, Cross approached Sophia. You know this is what he wants. You aggressive, emotional, making mistakes because you're trying to protect your people. I know, Sophia said. That's why I'm not going in emotional. I'm going in with a plan and the best tactical advisor in the business. Sophia pulled out her satellite phone. The man who hunted Constantine for 15 years and lived to tell about it. 12 hours later, a military medical transport landed at Bram. Against every doctor's order, against all common sense and regulation, Sergeant Major William Rodriguez stepped off that aircraft. He was 65 years old, weighed maybe 130 pounds, moved like every step cost him. Terminal lung cancer was eating him from the inside out. By all rights, he should have been in a hospital bed waiting to die. Instead, he was in Afghanistan about to advise on a tactical operation against the one enemy who'd ever been his equal. Cross watched Rodriguez shuffle across the tarmac and felt something he hadn't felt since Somalia. That bone-deep certainty that he was in the presence of someone truly exceptional, someone who transcended normal human limits through pure force of will. Sergeant Major Rodriguez, Cross saluted Chief Daniel Cross, SEAL Team 7. It's an honor, sir. Rodriguez returned the salute with a hand that shook slightly, but his eyes were clear, sharp, missing nothing. Chief Cross, Sophia's told me about you, Desert Storm and Somalia veteran. You understand what we're up against. A ghost from the Cold War who wants to kill everyone Sophia's ever trained, Cross said bluntly. Not just kill, Rodriguez corrected. Destroy. There's a difference. Constantine isn't hunting for money anymore. This is personal. This is about proving he was always better than me. And the way he does that is by destroying my legacy. He looked toward the operations building where Sophia was planning. She's my legacy. The students she's trained are my legacy. He wants to erase all of it. Make sure Rodriguez's methods die with Rodriguez. He doesn't know Sophia like you do, Cross said. Rodriguez smiled. It made his gaunt face look almost skeletal. No, he doesn't. Ma'am, Hayes said that shot through the cave opening at 680 meters. How did you calculate for the wind drift through the mountain pass? And Sophia, because Rodriguez had taught her to always pass knowledge forward, told him, explain the mathematics, the geometry, the patience, all of it. Because that's what guardians do. They don't just hunt, they teach. They pass the legacy forward. Cross organized his team. 3 wounded, but stable. 1 dead. Petty Officer Carter had never had a chance. Sophia looked at Carter's body and felt a familiar weight. Almost too late. If command had listened to her intelligence reports 3 days ago. If the bureaucracy hadn't delayed her warnings. If but dwelling on the ifs didn't bring Carter back. Didn't change anything except to make the next operation more urgent. Chief, I need to verify the eliminations. Sophia said. Make sure all 10 are confirmed dead and collect intelligence from their positions. Can your team assist? We'll split into teams and check each position. Cross said, but I'm coming with you to the first one. I need to see this for myself. They moved through the darkness to the nearest enemy position, the one 430 m northeast. When they reached it, Cross used his night vision to examine the scene. The enemy sniper was exactly where Sophia had said, dead from a single headshot. His thermal scope still in position, still faintly warm from recent use. Professional setup, good cover, excellent field of fire, prepared fallback routes. This wasn't an amateur. This was someone with serious military training. You made this shot from where? Cross asked. 380m ridge on the opposite side of the valley. He never knew I was there. Cross studied the body, the positioning, the equipment. This man was trained. Look at his setup. Former Spetsnaz, maybe GRU. Probably fought in Cheskna, Georgia, maybe Ukraine before coming here. This isn't Taliban insurgent. This is professional soldier. They were all professional. Sophia said all 10 coordinated tactics, military discipline. Someone trained them well. They moved to verify the other positions. Each one the same. Professional positioning, good equipment, military precision. All of them dead from single shots in total darkness. Cross's respect grew with each position they verified. By the time they'd confirmed all 10 kills, he understood what he'd witnessed. Not just skill, not just training, but something more. Something that separated legends from everyone else. After they'd verified the last position, Ryan Hayes found something. A waterproof document case hidden beneath rocks near the 10th sniper's body. Chief, you need to see this. Inside the case, photographs, intelligence reports, all in Russian with English translations, all focused on one target. Sophia's face stared up from a dozen surveillance photos. Different locations, different operations. Someone had been tracking her for months. The title page made her blood run cold. Target American Night Hunter. The steel door was closed, locked, probably alarmed, definitely monitored. She stood in front of it, fully visible, made no attempt to hide. Keyed her radio on an open frequency she knew Constantine would be monitoring. I'm here alone like you asked. Let's finish this. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Lights came on inside, revealing a corridor, concrete walls, steel floor, no cover. Perfect kill zone if Constantine wanted to shoot her as she entered. Sophia walked in anyway because that's what Guardians did. They walked into danger when people needed saving. The door closed behind her with a sound like a tomb ceiling. She was inside, committed. No retreat now. Welcome, Ghost Apprentice. Constantine's voice echoed from speakers mounted in the ceiling. You're early. I appreciate punctuality. Please proceed forward. My hospitality awaits. Sophia moved through the corridor. Her rifle up. Night vision showing her the interior in perfect clarity. The bunker was exactly as Cold War blueprints indicated. Central operations room, side chambers, storage. All of it designed for a crew of 30 Soviet operators monitoring NATO communications. Now it housed one old Spetsnaz legend in his final confrontation. She found the hostages in the central room. Corporal Jackson, Petty Officer O'Brien, Staff Sergeant Williams. All three bound, but alive. Beaten, but conscious. They looked up as Sophia entered, relief flooding their faces. Ma'am, Jackson whispered. It's a trap. I know. Sophia moved to cut their bonds. Can you walk? Yes, ma'am. O'Brien said, but the exits are locked, electronic. He controls them from somewhere inside. Sophia freed all three. Handed O'Brien a sidearm from her kit. Exit south, 2 kilometers out, friendly forces. Run and don't look back. We're not leaving you, Williams said. That's an order, Staff Sergeant. Your part is done. Mine is just beginning. Sophia's voice carried command that made them move despite their protests. You're the mission. Now completed. They moved reluctantly, but they moved. Sophia watched them disappear down the corridor toward the south exit. Heard the door unlock electronically. Heard it seal behind them. Now it was just her and Constantine. Hunter and Hunter. Ghost versus ghost. Very noble. Constantine's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Sacrificing yourself for your students. Rodriguez would be proud. Now come to the roof where he and I met 38 years ago. Let's finish what we started. Then Sophia found the stairs, ascended, each step taking her higher into the bunker, higher toward the confrontation that had been building for 4 decades. Rodriguez versus Constantine. Old war, old grudges, old ghosts. But she wasn't fighting for old reasons. Wasn't hunting for Rodriguez's revenge or Constantine's pride. She was here because 3 of her students had been hostages. Because 5 more were still in danger. Because Guardians didn't let predators operate unpunished. The roof access opened to mountain air. Dawn was approaching, sky turning from black to gray. In another hour, the sun would rise. For now, darkness still held. Constantine stood at the far end of the roof. Old Soviet equipment scattered around. Radio antennas, listening devices, all of it rusted and forgotten, like the war they represented. He was smaller than Sophia expected, not physically imposing, just an old man and worn tactical gear. But his eyes, those eyes held 40 years of killing, 40 years of hunting, 40 years of being the best and knowing it. Sophia Chun, he studied her like a specimen. Finally, Rodriguez's masterwork. I've watched you for 6 months. Studied your tactics. Learned your patterns. Better than he was at your age. Better than most will ever be. He smiled. But not better than me. Never better than me. I'm not here to prove I'm better, Sophia said. Her rifle was slung. His was leaning against equipment 10 m away. They were talking, not shooting. Not yet. I'm here because you killed my students, threatened my people. This ends tonight. You're right. It does end tonight, but not the way you think. Constantine walks slowly along the roof. Not threatening, just moving. Let me tell you a story, Sophia, about 2 young snipers, one American, one Soviet, both believing their system was superior, both hunting each other across a divided Germany. I know the story, Sophia said. Rodriguez told me. Did he tell you we were friends once before the politics? Before the ideology? Constantine's voice carried something like sadness. This very roof we met by accident. Both hunting the same target. Both arriving at the same time. We aimed at each other. We fired simultaneously. He gestured to a spot on the concrete. Both bullets hit right there 6 in from each other. We both missed. Only time either of us ever missed. Then what happened? We talked for 1 hour. We sat on this roof and talked as snipers, as professionals, not as enemies. We discussed wind reading, ballistics, the mathematics of impossible shots. Constantine's eyes grew distant. In that hour, Rodriguez was my friend, the only friend who understood what I did, what I was. Then why did you keep hunting him? Because when the sun rose, we remembered who we were, what we represented. He went back to being American. I went back to being Soviet. And the war continued. A long pause. Rodriguez's breathing was labored wet. The cancer was winning. Victor Constantine was my equal. Sophia, maybe better. For 15 years, we hunted each other across Europe, and neither of us ever landed a killing shot. He's got 35 more years of experience now. 35 years of hate and skill and cunning. Then it's time I met him, Sophia said. He'll kill you, or I'll kill him. Either way, this ends. She looked at the dossier at Phase 2, listing 12 of her students as targets. He's not just hunting me anymore, Ghost. He's hunting everyone I've trained. Everyone you taught me to create. If we don't stop him, he'll destroy everything we've built. Rodriguez was quiet. Sophia could hear machines beeping in the background, medical equipment keeping him alive. Then I taught you too well, Rodriguez finally said. Because you're right. This needs to end, and you're the only one who can end it. A rattling breath. But Sophia, don't hunt him for revenge. Don't hunt him to prove you're better. Hunt him because he threatens good people trying to do good work. Hunt him as a guardian, not a killer. I understand, Ghost. I know you do. That's why I trained you. That's why you'll beat him. Another breath. Now go save your students. Finish what I started 40 years ago. Show Constantine that the night belongs to guardians now, not ghosts from the Cold War. Guardians. The line went dead. Sophia stood in the Afghan darkness, surrounded by the bodies of 10 professional snipers she'd eliminated in 4 hours. Held a dossier showing that a Soviet legend was hunting her and everyone she'd trained. Knew that Phase 2 was already in motion. Chief Cross was watching her, waiting for orders, even though she technically wasn't in his chain of command. What do you need from us, Sergeant? Sophia looked at him. This man who'd fought in Desert Storm, who'd seen Black Hawk Down, who understood what it meant when ghosts from old wars came back to haunt the living. I need transport to Fort Bragg immediately, and I need you to trust that what happens next is necessary. Cross nodded. Consider it done. As they moved toward the extraction point, Sophia looked back one last time at the valley where she'd made 10 impossible shots, where she'd saved 7 SEALs from an ambush. Meant to study her tactics. Constantine thought he was the hunter. Thought his 40 years of experience in Cold War legacy made him superior. Thought Phase 1 was complete, and he understood how Sophia operated. He was wrong, because Rodriguez hadn't just taught Sophia how to hunt. He taught her how to think, how to adapt, how to become something more than just a skilled shooter. He taught her to be a guardian. And guardians didn't run from threats. They eliminated them. Phase 2 was in motion. 12 of her students were in danger. Time to show Victor Constantine what happened when Soviet ghosts came after American guardians. The night belonged to her now, and she was just getting started. 38 years. And he finally got me. Not through superior skill. Not through better tactics. He coughed. Through love. Through caring about something more than himself. He looked at Sophia. I trained 63 operatives over 40 years. Not one would have made that shot for me. Not one cared enough. That's the difference between hunters and guardians, Sophia said. Constantine closed his eyes. Tell him. Tell Rodriguez he won. Not the rivalry. The bigger game. He figured out what mattered. I never did. My IDA radio. Ghost target is neutralized. Mission complete. Hostages secure. Rodriguez's voice came back, so weak it was barely audible. Knew you could. A long pause. Labored breathing. Sophia, need you to. Need you. The word stopped. Just open channel. Just the sound of medics working. Of machines beeping frantically, of someone dying 900 meters away. Sophia ran, sprinted across the roof, down the stairs, out of the bunker, across open ground. 900 all of it at full sprint with 50 pounds of gear. Cross and his team had secured the perimeter. Had Rodriguez on the ground, medics working. But Sophia could see from a 100 meters out, it was too late. The exertion of making that shot. The stress on his failing body. It had been too much. She dropped to her knees beside him, grabbed his hand. Ghost, stay with me. Medevac is inbound. You're going to be fine. Rodriguez's eyes found hers. He was smiling despite the blood on his lips. Despite the machine screaming that he was dying. Made the shot. Not bad for old man. Best shot I've ever seen, Sophia said. Her voice broke. Thank you. For everything. Not everything. Rodriguez squeezed her hand with what little strength remained. Taught you how to hunt, but you taught yourself something better. How to be guardian. His breathing was slowing. Stopping. Not killer. Guardian. That's legacy. Pass it forward. I will. I promise. Love you, daughter. I never had. Rodriguez's eyes stayed on hers. The night belongs to the guardians now. Tell them. Tell everyone. His hand went slack. The machines flatlined. The medics worked frantically, but Sophia knew Rodriguez was gone. He'd held on just long enough to make that impossible shot. Just long enough to save her one last time. Just long enough to pass the legacy forward completely. Then he'd let go. Sophia sat in Afghan mountain darkness holding the hand of the man who'd been more father than teacher. The man who'd taken a grief-stricken girl and turned her into something that mattered. The man who'd spent his last months on Earth making sure his knowledge didn't die with him. Chief Cross stood nearby, silent, respectful, understanding that some grief needed space. When Sophia finally stood, the sun was rising. Dawn breaking across mountains where so much had happened. Where 10 snipers had died. Where 16 more had fallen. Where 7 of her students had been avenged. Where Rodriguez had made his final shot. Where the night gave way to light. 2 months later, Sophia stood at Arlington National Cemetery in dress uniform. The morning was cold, gray, appropriate for burying legends. Rodriguez's casket rested on a caisson, flag draped, honored. Behind it, a formation of Marines and dressed blues. Rodriguez's brothers, men who'd served with him, men who'd known him as ghost, as legend, as friend. The chapel was full. Officers from every branch, operators from every special forces unit. All of them here to honor a man who'd spent 40 years in shadows. Who'd killed America's enemies from distances they never knew existed. Who trained the next generation to do the same. Sophia delivered the eulogy. Her voice steady despite the grief. Despite the weight of speaking for someone who changed her life so completely. Sergeant Major William Rodriguez taught me how to hunt in darkness, how to read wind, how to make impossible shots, how to become a ghost. She looked at the rows of faces, saw Chief's Cross, saw Ryan Hayes, saw Colonel Mitchell, saw the 3 hostages she'd rescued, saw the 5 surviving students from her original 12. All of them here, all of them alive because of what Rodriguez had taught. But more importantly, he taught me why to hunt. Not for glory, not for revenge, not to prove superiority, but to protect those who can't protect themselves. He was the greatest night warrior America ever produced. Not because of his 153 confirmed kills, but because his final shot at age 65, dying from cancer across 900 m of mountain wind. Her voice caught. That shot wasn't about him. It was about saving me, about protecting his student, about being a guardian instead of just a hunter. That's what makes someone great. That's his legacy. The 21-gun salute cracked across Arlington. Taps played. The flag was folded with precision and ceremony. Presented to Sophia as next of kin, as daughter in all but blood. She accepted it with hands that didn't shake. Held it against her chest. Felt the weight of everything Rodriguez had given her. Everything he'd taught her. Everything he'd been. Thank you, Ghost, she whispered. 3 months later, Fort Bragg unveiled the Rodriguez Institute for Nocturnal Warfare, a dedicated training facility for Special Operations Forces learning night combat tactics. State-of-the-art equipment, the best instructors, all of it built on Rodriguez's methods, all of it carrying his name forward. Sophia Chin stood in the main lecture hall, facing 30 elite operators from every branch of service. Rangers, SEALs, Marines, Green Berets, Delta Force. All of them here to learn the methods that had saved her life and taken Constantine's. All of them here because Rodriguez's legacy demanded it. Night warfare has fundamentally changed, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. The enemy has thermal optics, night vision, communication encryption, satellite intelligence. They think technology makes them superior. They're wrong. She gestured to the display behind her, showing thermal signatures, wind calculations, ballistic mathematics. Technology is just tools. It's the person using them that matters. And every tool has a weakness. Every advantage creates a vulnerability. Your job is to find those vulnerabilities and exploit them. The students took notes, asked questions, absorbed everything. Just like Rodriguez had taught her to do 7 years ago when she was a grief-stricken private seeking revenge for her brother's death. Now she was Master Sergeant Sophia Chun, Director of Advanced Night Operations, holder of the Congressional Medal of Honor, and trainer of the next generation of Guardians. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd become the teacher Rodriguez had always intended her to be. 6 months into running the institute, the first crisis came. Intelligence reports indicated that Constantine's network hadn't died with him. 3 former associates had taken over operations, spreading his methods to insurgent groups across Eastern Europe. They called themselves the Shadow Collective, and they were using Rodriguez's stolen tactics against American forces in Ukraine. Colonel Mitchell summoned Sophia to a classified briefing at Fort Bragg, the same room where she'd first learned Constantine was alive, where she'd planned his destruction. Now it housed a different kind of war council. Sergeant Chun, Mitchell began, we have a problem. The Shadow Collective has trained insurgent forces in night warfare tactics identical to yours. They're using Rodriguez's methods against NATO troops in Ukraine. Sophisticated ambushes, thermal countermeasures, coordinated sniper operations. They're winning. The screen showed aftermath photos from recent engagements. Ukrainian positions overrun in darkness. NATO advisors killed by precision shots from ranges thought impossible. Professional work executed with cold efficiency. This looks familiar, Sophia said quietly. It should. They stole Constantine's intelligence files when he died. 30 years of studying Rodriguez's methods. 6 months of analyzing your tactics. They know everything you know. Mitchell paused. We need you to go to Ukraine. Train our people, develop countermeasures, and if necessary, eliminate the Shadow Collective leadership. Sophia studied the photos, the tactical reports, the evidence of Rodriguez's methods being perverted by Constantine's successors. How many operators? 3 primary targets. Viktor Kozlov, former Spetsnaz. Anna Volkov, Georgian military intelligence. Dmitry Petrov, Chechen sniper. All trained by Constantine. All using your teacher's knowledge to kill Americans. When do I leave? 48 hours. You'll have full operational support. But, Chun, this isn't a teaching mission. This is direct action. Eliminate the threat. Bring our people home alive. Understood. 3 weeks later, Sophia found herself in a frozen observation post outside Kharkiv, watching enemy movements through the same type of thermal scope Rodriguez had taught her to use. The Ukrainian winter was brutal, temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Celsius, but the cold helped mask thermal signatures and made long-range shooting more precise. Chief Warrant Officer Jake Martinez crouched beside her, a former Marine Scout sniper who'd volunteered for the mission. He was young, maybe 25, reminded Sophia of herself at that age. Eager, skilled, but not yet seasoned by the weight of command. Target acquired, he whispered. 800 meters northwest. Single individual, appears to be conducting reconnaissance on our forward positions. Sophia adjusted her scope, found the target. The figure moved with professional discipline, staying low, using terrain effectively. This wasn't amateur Taliban or ISIS. This was someone who'd been trained by the best. Stand by, she said, calculating wind speed, temperature, humidity. All the variables Rodriguez had drilled into her during those 6 months of training. The mathematics of death delivered from distance. She thought of her brother David, killed by snipers who'd owned the night. Thought of Rodriguez, dying of cancer but still making impossible shots to save her life. Thought of the students she'd trained, the ones Constantine had murdered, the legacy she carried forward. The rifle spoke. Subsonic ammunition, 175-grain Sierra Match King bullet, threading through Ukrainian darkness to find its target 800 meters away. The figure collapsed. Never knew what killed him. First blood to the Americans. Martinez looked at her with something approaching awe. How did you know he was enemy? Movement pattern, equipment positioning, the way he held his rifle. Sophia was already gathering her gear, preparing to move to a new position. Rodriguez taught me that professionals move differently than amateurs. That training shows in everything they do. Time to relocate before his friends come looking. Over the next month, Sophia and her team of American advisors systematically dismantled the Shadow Collective's operations in eastern Ukraine. They eliminated 17 enemy snipers, disrupted 5 major ambush operations, and captured enough intelligence to map the entire network structure. But the 3 primary targets remained elusive. Kozlov, Volkov, and Petrov were too experienced, too well trained in Rodriguez's methods. They knew how to disappear, how to avoid detection, how to strike without being seen. They were Rodriguez's knowledge turned against everything he'd stood for. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. During a routine interrogation of a captured insurgent, Sophia learned that the Shadow Collective was planning something called Operation Blackout, a coordinated night attack on 3 NATO positions simultaneously, designed to demonstrate their superiority over American night warfare tactics. The same strategy Constantine had used against her students, scaled up for maximum impact. The insurgent didn't know specifics, but he mentioned a location. An abandoned Soviet radar facility in the Carpathian Mountains, 40 kilometers from the front lines. Intelligence suggested it was being used as a training center and command post. Sophia requested permission for direct action. Colonel Mitchell's response came through encrypted channels within hours. Operation authorized. Eliminate all 3 targets. Full operational discretion. Bring our people home. The insertion was at midnight on a moonless night in March. Temperature -15 degrees Celsius, wind gusting to 20 kilometers per hour from the northwest. Conditions that would challenge any sniper, even one trained by Rodriguez. Sophia went in alone. The radar facility was exactly as advertised. Abandoned Soviet infrastructure, concrete bunkers, rusted equipment. But thermal imaging revealed active heat sources, human movement, recent occupation. Someone was using this place as a base of operations. She found the first target by accident. Viktor Kozlov, 62 years old, former Spetsnaz colonel, Constantine's longest-serving associate. He was conducting night training with a group of insurgent snipers, teaching them the same patience and precision Rodriguez had taught her. Ironic that Rodriguez's methods would be used to eliminate someone perverting Rodriguez's legacy. Kozlov never saw the shot coming. 680 meters, subsonic ammunition, single headshot. His students scattered, but they were amateurs compared to Rodriguez's teachings. Sophia tracked them through thermal imaging, eliminated 3 more before they reached cover. 7 more would never use Rodriguez's knowledge to kill Americans. Anna Volkov was more challenging. Georgian military intelligence, expert in electronic warfare and counter-surveillance. She'd established an observation post in the radar facility's main tower, 40 meters above ground, with clear fields of fire in all directions. Professional setup, excellent tactical position. But Sophia had learned from Rodriguez that every advantage creates a vulnerability. Volkov's elevation gave her excellent visibility, but it also silhouetted her against the sky. Thermal scope revealed her exact position, and the concrete tower walls wouldn't stop Rodriguez's custom ammunition. The shot was 1,200 meters, extreme range for any sniper. Wind correction for 20 kilometers per hour gusting, temperature compensation for -15 degrees, elevation adjustment for the target's height advantage. All the mathematics Rodriguez had drilled into her, applied to eliminate someone who'd perverted his knowledge. "This one's for you, Ghost," she whispered and fired. The subsonic round flew for 2.3 seconds, threading through Ukrainian darkness to find its target. Volkov collapsed in her observation post, never knowing that Rodriguez's favorite student had come calling. 2 down, 1 remaining. Dmitry Petrov was Konstantin's masterpiece, a Chechen sniper with over 200 confirmed kills, trained in the deepest secrets of Rodriguez's methods. He'd anticipated Sofia's arrival, set up a counter-ambush, prepared the ultimate test of teacher versus student. They found each other at dawn, 1,800 meters apart across a snow-covered valley. Petrov in elevated position with superior equipment and home field advantage. Sofia prone in ankle-deep snow, using Rodriguez's custom rifle, carrying the weight of everyone Konstantin had killed. The duel lasted 4 hours. Shot and counter-shot, advance and withdrawal, each trying to outmaneuver the other using tactics learned from the same source. Rodriguez's methods turned against Rodriguez's methods, teacher versus student separated by politics and loyalty, but connected by knowledge that transcended borders. Petrov was good, better than good. He'd absorbed everything Konstantin had learned studying Rodriguez for 30 years, combined it with his own battlefield experience, refined it through constant training. He was everything Rodriguez had been, without Rodriguez's conscience. But he'd made one mistake. He thought Rodriguez had trained a sniper. Rodriguez had trained a guardian. And guardians fight for something larger than themselves. Sofia's final shot came at 1,847 meters, the longest confirmed kill in Ukrainian military history. Extreme range, impossible conditions, a target that knew exactly how dangerous she was. The bullet flew for 3.1 seconds, carrying 7 years of training, 2 decades of Rodriguez's knowledge, and the weight of everyone who died because Konstantin perverted what should have been used to protect. Petrov collapsed in his hide, and Konstantin's legacy died with him. The Shadow Collective was finished. Rodriguez's methods belonged to Guardians again. Sofia returned to Fort Bragg 6 weeks later with mission complete status and the gratitude of 3 nations. The Rodriguez Institute expanded its curriculum, began training international allies in advanced night warfare tactics. The knowledge Rodriguez died protecting was now being shared with those who would use it properly. A year later, Sofia stood again at Arlington National Cemetery, this time for a different ceremony. The unveiling of a memorial wall honoring night warfare specialists killed in action. Rodriguez's name was first on the list, followed by every operator who died learning or teaching his methods. At the dedication, General Mitchell spoke to the assembled crowd. The techniques pioneered by Sergeant Major Rodriguez and perfected by Master Sergeant Chun have fundamentally changed how special operations forces engage in night warfare. Their methods have saved countless American lives and will continue protecting future generations. She looked at Sofia. "Master Sergeant Chun, would you like to add anything?" Sofia approached the podium, looked out at the crowd of operators, instructors, military families. All of them here because Rodriguez had refused to let his knowledge die with him. All of them carrying forward what he'd sacrificed everything to protect. "Sergeant Major Rodriguez taught me that the night doesn't belong to predators," she said, her voice carrying across the silent cemetery. "It belongs to guardians. People who understand that protection matters more than glory, that purpose beats pride, that knowledge shared properly can save lives while knowledge perverted destroys them." She paused, looked at Rodriguez's name carved in black granite. "He taught me that being a guardian means never stopping, never giving up, never letting the darkness win. And as long as we remember that, as long as we pass that forward, the night will always belong to those who use it to protect rather than harm." The ceremony ended, but the legacy continued. Rodriguez Institute graduated new classes every month, each one carrying forward methods that had been tested in combat, proven effective, refined through sacrifice. The knowledge lived on, shared properly, used by those who understood what it meant to be guardians rather than hunters. 6 months later, Sophia received orders that would take her story full circle. Intelligence had identified a new threat: former Islamic State fighters trained in advanced night warfare tactics by unknown instructors. The methods were sophisticated, professional, effective against conventional forces. Someone was teaching ISIS Rodriguez's techniques. The mission briefing was classified, but the objective was clear: eliminate the training cadre, disrupt their operations, ensure Rodriguez's knowledge wasn't being perverted again. Sophia accepted the assignment without hesitation. Rodriguez had taught her that guardianship was a lifetime commitment, that protecting what mattered required constant vigilance, that the price of freedom was eternal readiness to fight those who would abuse power. As she prepared for deployment, Sophia thought about the path that had brought her here. From grief-stricken private seeking revenge for her brother's death, to student learning impossible skills from a dying master, to guardian carrying forward a legacy that transcended individual ambition. Rodriguez had been right about everything. The night belonged to those who understood its true purpose: protection rather than predation, service rather than glory, purpose that outlived the people who carried it. Sophia Chun, Master Sergeant, United States Army, Director of the Rodriguez Institute for Nocturnal Warfare, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, guardian of knowledge that could save lives or destroy them. She was everything Rodriguez had trained her to become, everything David would have been proud of, everything the darkness needed to keep the light alive. The mission awaited. The students continued training. The legacy lived on. And in the darkness of a Carolina night, if you listened carefully, you might hear Rodriguez's voice carried on the wind. Faint but certain, proud but vigilant. Make sure it always does, he'd say. Make sure the night belongs to guardians. Sophia would. That was the promise, the responsibility, the inheritance of someone who'd learned from the best and understood what it cost. The darkness was eternal, but so was the light of those who chose to carry it. Rodriguez had passed it to her. She would pass it forward, guardian to guardian, teacher to student, protector to protector, until the end of time. Because that's what guardians do. They never stop watching. They never stop teaching. They never stop protecting what matters most. The night belonged to them, and through them, it belonged to everyone who slept safely because someone else stood watch in the darkness. Rodriguez's final lesson, taught through a lifetime of sacrifice and perfected in the moment of his death, lived on in every graduate of his institute, every operation they completed successfully, every life they saved. Knowledge shared properly, used by those who understood its true purpose, passed forward to protect rather than harm. This was his legacy. This was his victory. This was what he'd died to ensure. The night belonged to guardians, and it always would.